Hello everyone, we're on part 2 now, or episode 2, or whatever the fuck you want to call it, doesn't matter to me. And this time I want to cover events and functions. In the last time we covered properties and manipulating them, and what events and functions are responsible for is making those property changes happen. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use something really basic. I'll just insert a tool, which you can search for tool for, you get it in your backpack. But if I try to select it, it doesn't work. But every tool needs one part in it, so you can search for part in here, insert it. It needs a part in it. It can be a union, it can be a mesh part. As long as it's considered a part, it's fine. It needs to be named handle. And once you have that, then you can select the tool, and then everything in the tool will work correctly. We'll also be inserting a script into the tool because that's how we're going to make everything happen. So the first thing we're going to do, let's make a small shortcut like before. Actually, I'm going to make it lowercase because it's faster. And if you remember from last time, if I do this, the word tool now refers to, well, the tool in my backpack, because you're referencing the script and then its parent. Now we're going to make a function real quick, because it'll be important for next part. So to make a function, you just type in function, then the name of it, whatever you want it to be. So let's just make this use, and then parentheses, parentheses. And when you press enter after that, it'll automatically make an end. And so everything inside here is considered the function. And so what you want to put inside of this is any of the property manipulation that you want to do. Now let me actually go back up here and set this to handle. Actually, look, you can do this as well. You can reference tool before as it goes up to that and go to the handle. So now we have the handle reference as well. But let's make it handle dot brick color, because we know that brick color is a property of handle. We'll write the equals because we need to. Set it to something else. You type brick color again dot new. This is a value type for brick colors. And then in those parentheses that I added, you just write the name of it as it would appear up here. So bright blue is one of them. And I'm going to change it back just so we know something actually happened. And so basically, we have this function, and when this function's called, it's going to run this line. So if I just kind of tab below it and type use like that, anytime you call a function like this, you will be calling the function to happen. So let me just write, if you put 2 dashes in front of anything, that'll comment it, which means it won't run the code. So if I have the tool out, and let me just open this up so it's in my character so I can see it, and I run it by doing the disable thing, it won't change color to bright blue. That's because I have this commented out. But if I do uncomment it now, this is going to run. So once this runs, it's going to reference up here and turn it blue. And there that goes. Let me just change it back for next time. So that's basically how a function works, but we can also pass along arguments in functions. So let's just make this arg. People call them arguments variables. There's multiple names for them. I'm going to copy this and replace it with arg, and I'll put that in there. So now, when you call use, you're sending this argument to right here, and whatever this reference is right there as well. So this sends it to bright blue as well. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys. There we go. So now that we can call certain properties to happen at any time, for example, if we put a wait in front of this, if after 5 seconds this would play. Now, but to make it happen at like a specific time, like a player interaction kind of way, we're going to make it anytime a mouse is clicked, or the player's mouse clicks. And luckily we can use the tool for that. That's why I chose this, is that if you go onto the wiki and you go to the tool page and you scroll down to events, it'll show a list of all the events and how they're called as well. And so tool, whoops, sorry, I made it lowercase in this one, tool.activated calls every time that someone clicks their mouse. So you just write the name of the instance dot its event, and when you put colon connect, so you're connecting to that event, parentheses, now you type function, and then you press enter, it should end, and then put a parentheses for you. So every time the mouse is clicked, it'll run this function right here that I'm highlighting, and if I wanted to make it spaced out to look better, it'd more do like that. And in that side of that function, you can do use, and then let's just put bright blue again. So that's one way of doing it, and let me just put that back to the way it was. This is a more neater way of making it look. That's one way of doing it, and it should work. So if I re-enable it, and I click, there it goes. Let me try it, let me just do it again. So I'm going to click right now, here we go. Yep, so it works. Multiple times too, it doesn't break. And that's basically the easy way to do events. There is a second way to do events. The way you do this one is kind of stupid though. So you do the same thing, you do tool.activated, you type connect, and now you type use. just by itself, and that would call the use function. The issue with this though is that you can't pass anything to arg right here. You can't put any arguments in there. I can't do use right. I mean, if I ran this, it would work, but one time and then it would break. So the way this, if you just do it like this, it'll still break because you're not passing an argument either. So let me try it again. Let me just change the color to green. If I click, I get an error down here. What that error is saying is that brickcolor.new arg, or nil, isn't anything. So the reason this is used is sometimes certain events can pass along arguments by themselves. Let me see if I can think of an example. I know if you do a human, I'm writing this running connect use. If I did that, now let's assume this humanoid is connected to the player's humanoid, and running plays whenever a character starts moving or lands or changes speed in general. That will pass along, this argument would then become the speed at which they are moving. So that's an example of how an event can pass on an argument. But in general, I suggest sticking with this method because it's a lot faster to type and you know it's going to already work. There is another way to have things happen at different times besides just using waits, and these are used for a lot of different things, and they're called loops. Loops basically allow you to run the same piece of code over and over again, and there's two kinds. Let me just delete this, I already had one written, sorry. The first kind is a while loop. So you type while true do and end. You also want to include a wait, because if you don't, it'll crash the game, because what happens is once this runs through, it's going to restart itself. So if there's no wait, it would keep on running itself as fast as possible and take up too much memory and crash the game. So you always want to include the shortest wait. And I didn't mention this before, but inside waits you can also just leave them blank and it'll count as the smallest amount of time it can wait. This varies based on the server and how fast it's running. So it's the best you're going to get. So it sets a wait as blank, or wait 0 also works as well, but wait blank works fine. And now you can write something in here. So if I put the bright blue from earlier, this will make a loop that every time this amount of time, the server's like render time, it's going to set the brick color to blue. So if I just start running that code, there it's blue. If I try to manually change it here, it's going to flicker back as fast as it can because it's constantly being set back to blue. Now, let me diagnose while true do real here. Basically what this is saying is while whatever is inside of here is equal to true, do, or exists. So by putting true in there, it's basically saying while true is equal to true, do that. Another option is putting while script do. Now while the script is not equal to true, the script exists. Like obviously it exists, it's right here. So as long as the script exists, do this. It doesn't matter which one you use. There's other things you can use, such as conditional statements, which we haven't gotten to yet, but we'll cover those later. So for now, just use while true do. Now, important note about using while true do or any loop is that it'll yield until this finishes. And yield means basically it just waits until that finishes to run the nice piece of code. So if we put green here, this line of code down here will never run because this is constantly looping over on itself. The way to stop a loop is to type break. So what this will do then is it'll start the loop, wait, turn it blue, stop the loop, and then end the loop as well. If this break wasn't here, it would just constantly go over and over again. So the break is usually used in conditionals as well, and we still haven't covered those. But that'll be for next time, because they're pretty important. So if I ran this is going to turn it red, blue, and then green. And it'll go really fast, and you probably won't even see the blue. Yep, right to green. The next kind of loop are for statements. And these have a lot of different uses. But I'm just going to show you guys a really basic way to do it, and imagine this as kind of a limited loop. So what I usually do is I do for I equals 1, 10, do. And press enter, it'll make the end for you. And what this does, it'll run what's ever inside this 10 times. So starting at 1, going to 10, that's 10 times. And while inside here, I, like if you reference I for any reason, if you use I, which will pass I onto here, and brickcolor.new I doesn't exist, but I references whatever number it's currently on. So it'll start at 1 and go to 10 as it counts up with each loop. This can be any number, by the way, but you'd always have to remember to change this as well. Most people use T or I or A. I use I because that's how I learned it. And so this one, by the way, you don't need to put a wait in it like I'm doing right now. You don't need to because this will only run 10 times and then end. So it's not important. It won't run infinitely. If you make it like a super big number like that, then it'll probably crash. But slow numbers like this, not too bad. I'm going to put a weight in it just to be safe anyways, though. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to probably just copy and paste this to red. And let's copy and paste this and change this one to blue. So 10 times it's going to alternate between blue and red. Let's run that and find out if it does it. It's going to go very quickly, so watch carefully. There it goes. Did 1,000,000 times and ended on red because it was the last thing. Now break can also use for this one too. So if I put break in here, it'll only do it one time and it won't flash a bunch. Yep, there it goes. So those are really the two basic kinds of loops. For statements can be used in a lot of different ways, and we haven't covered conditional, also known as if statements yet, but they're also very useful in loops as well. So that's really the end of this one. I've covered events, functions, and loops, and all of those combined with properties as before, as you manipulate properties by using a function which are fired by events or loops. One thing I just want to cover real quick is that this whole time, let me just write this again, I've been using the function to do all of these different things, but you don't always have to use a function. They're basically really good shortcuts. If I had maybe like 100 lines of code in here and I needed to call it multiple times, then I'd use it. But I can easily just use this as well. Let me put the weight so it's correct. I can easily just use this as well. You don't need to always use functions. I'm just explaining how they work exactly.
Aoi, 風が今胸のドアを叩いても私だけをただ見つめて微笑んで